going on, everybody? This is another video request that I had gotten when I had taken some request offers, basically, if you bought my newest album. So this is a request from Colin. He wanted me to check out Midtown's album, Living Well is the Best Revenge. And I've heard of the band for a very long time. I've never really gotten into them. I don't remember if I ever really checked them out back in the day. I think I might have heard like a couple songs, but nothing that really stuck with me. So I checked out the whole album, and I definitely get some vibes, but and some things I want to talk about, but not a lot. I mean, for me personally, it doesn't really seem all that memorable. It just kind of has that vibe where it just kind of sits in the background a little bit. Like if this was, on at like a party or something, that's kind of what I would expect. It's not something that I would just want to casually listen to. But if somebody put it on, I'd be like, yeah, whatever, that's fine. It's certainly not offensive to my ears anyway. Some of those pop punk bands are just not good at all, but this is a definite middle ground for me. It doesn't wow me, but it doesn't irritate me. It doesn't rub me the wrong way or anything like that, like a lot of pop punk bands do. Obviously, if you've been following my channel for a while, you'll know that pop punk's not really my thing these days. It was definitely more of the 2000s kind of thing for me. Right around, maybe 2010, like the turn of the decade, is when I started branching out a bit more. But I think if I had given this band, a real full chance back in the day, I think it said this came out in 2002, I believe, which is, right when I was starting to get into this sort of thing. I don't even think back then it would have been something on high rotation for me. It might have been something that, I would at least buy. But even though it's much better than a lot of other bands in the genre, I don't think it was ever going to be something that really connected with me. One thing Colin had mentioned was that he was really into the guitar parts of the album, and there definitely is some interesting guitar licks. A lot of them are in the intros. They tend to make the intros fairly interesting, which I appreciate because a good intro really paves the way for the rest of the song. And there's a ton of songs out there that honestly I never would have gotten into if I didn't struggle past the intro. And that goes for any band. Even to this day, for example, one of my favorite bands is Rush. They've got some songs where the intros are just really weird, really different, and it kind of just puts me in a weird mood, immediately when the song comes on, and I'm like, I don't know if I want to listen to it, but if I get to the first or second minute, it opens up, becomes something good. But a lot of the songs on this album, it kind of throws you in immediately. It doesn't really leave a lot to the imagination. So I do appreciate that, but I do wish the guitar riffs were a little more prevalent, in the rest of the songs. Some of them have, a pretty decent bridge with, some interesting guitar parts, but even for the most part, the majority of the songs can be played with like one guitar, and they got two guitar players. When, in one of the intros, for example, one of the guitar players will be playing a little riff and the other guy will be playing, the power chords underneath it. But for the rest of the song, it's almost all just power chords, which obviously is a big staple of pop punk, but a lot of the times in the rest of the song, the other guitar player could be doing something to, harmonize, or some sort of little melody that plays along with the vocals, or, something that's maybe just a higher octave than what the other guitar player is playing, just to, broaden the sound a little bit and make it a little more interesting. And 90% of it, from what I noticed, was just straight up just the guitar players both playing the same thing. And I think that's kind of a waste, because Heath especially, I'm assuming that he's more of the lead guitar player. I didn't really watch many videos. I saw like one music video, so I didn't really see. I'm assuming Heath is the lead guitar player. I just feel like he could be doing a lot more during the rest of the songs. I will say that the most that I've ever known about Midtown is the fact that Heath came from Midtown. Now, around 2005, when he apparently left, he had gone to Senses Fail, and I was big into Senses Fail at the time. And he was on 2 albums, Still Searching, and I think Life Is Not a Waiting Room or something like that. And those albums had a very noticeable difference for guitar in a positive way. So I always kind of thought, maybe I should check out Midtown, because I know he was from that band, and he definitely brought a positive spin to Senses Fail with his interesting guitar parts, but it doesn't show enough as I'd like it to. But maybe that's just me nitpicking. I try to go as in depth as I can, like in my stuff, and even a lot of the pop punk bands that I listen to, are doing the same exact things that I'm criticizing, even for the bands that I really like. So I mean, I don't know, it's not a lot to really criticize. I just think that Heath has a lot more going for him than he really showed off on this album. Anyway, I haven't listened to the other albums. I don't have too much else to say. Let me see. I did write down on my notes here that they kind of have their own vibe. They really don't seem to remind me of any other certain band. I mean, and a lot of pop punk bands kind of fall into that category for me, where like they could easily, they're like 2 degrees away from this band or this band. They're all very similar. But I mean, they kind of have their own thing going, where it's like it's almost like everything combined. It's not so much that they totally ripped off one band or another band. They're almost like pop punk, in a nutshell almost. Like they have like one of the more just normalized pop punk sounds, if that makes any sense. Which is certainly not a bad thing. I think if somebody's trying to get into the genre, they would be a really good band to show, to kind of get you, dip your feet in a little bit. They're not really, they're not like super punk. They're not like super pop. They're definitely a good blend of everything. And I think it's an easy listen. I think that it's something that a casual listener can easily get into. And if they liked this band, then they could, branch out and, check out, the pop punk bands that are taking it a step further. So I think that's pretty cool. One thing I did want to say, the production I thought was pretty solid. I didn't look into who did it, but I thought that was pretty good. A lot of pop punk albums back in the day had pretty solid production, but this one didn't seem overdone. A lot of them can definitely get that way, but I think that this one was a good balance of a little bit of polish, but not too much. I also wanted to mention that I didn't realize that the singer of this band was in Cobra Starship. They were a band I was a little bit more familiar with because they were way bigger, and they started right after Midtown had broken up. And and I couldn't stand Cobra Starship. You know, if I was a fan of Midtown back in the day, and you know, if I had, you know, really liked the singer a lot, and then he jumped into Cobra Starship, I would have been really disappointed. So I can only imagine what Midtown fans feel about that. But yeah, that wouldn't be good for me, because they're a totally different feel, but it's just pure cheese, and just, I don't know, it's just not good. So I believe that's all I really have to say. I think the final track, Find Comfort in Yourself, that one's probably my favorite out of all the ones that I heard. I thought that one was pretty cool. But you know, for the most part, I think it was a pretty solid album. Like I said, nothing super special in my opinion. Definitely a good foot in the door for pop punk fans in general. If you haven't checked out the band and you're a fan of pop punk, I'm sure you'll like this band too. But I don't think it's ever going to be something that, you know, I choose to listen to casually. So, but I definitely appreciate the suggestion and checking them out. You know, I'm definitely glad that I now have a bit more knowledge on the band, you know, because there's always people asking me about Midtown. So thank you for the suggestion again, and hopefully you like the video. If you have any questions or comments or anything, leave them below, and I will certainly do what I can to reply as soon as possible. So thank you for watching. I'll see you guys later.